So you want to publish a book, huh? Hi, I'm Mackenzie Reed. I'm a traditionally published author. I have 2 books out with HarperCollins, The Rosewood Hunt and The Wild Trials, which are both young adult thrillers. I have 2 more books coming out with Harper, starting with Worse Than the Others in 2027, and I have 2 adult books coming out with Berkeley Penguin Random House in 2026. I hope this email finds you, and Hell will come out, my debut adult horror romantasy. And my next book is a secret, but I'm currently drafting it. All that to say, I have been pursuing traditional publishing for over a decade now, and The Rosewood Hunt was actually my 6th book I'd ever written, and it was my first to get published. So I kind of went through the ringer with my first 5 books, but I want to share kind of the basic steps to getting traditionally published. And even though there are a lot more nuances in it, and disclaimer, this is like an ever-changing industry, these are kind of just the basic steps that I would suggest everybody to look into if you want to get traditionally published, and especially if you're writing fiction. This is also mostly geared toward middle grade YA and adult authors, just because that's what I'm familiar with, and the process can change depending on what you write. Anyway, I'm really excited to walk you through the initial steps to getting published with this kind of beginner's process. Like I said, there's a lot of nuances to traditional publishing. There's a lot of gatekeeping, but overall, these same steps kind of apply to most people. Another thing to think about is, in truth, most authors don't get published with their first book or their second book, or in my case, my 3rd or 4th or 5th book either. However, that doesn't mean you're a bad writer, and it does not mean that you're not meant to see your book on shelves someday. At the end of the day, it is a highly competitive industry. There are a lot of hurdles to get to before you even get to the point where you're giving your book to publishers to consider. And there's just a lot of books out there. So all in all, I'm a big proponent of just keep trying till you hit it, but it might not be for everyone. Step 1 to getting traditionally published: write the dang book. All of it. If you're writing fiction, before any other steps are taken, you need to have the entire book finished. Another thing you should do is look up what audience you're writing for and what genre, and figure out what your target word count will be or should be, because it does vary across different age groups. For instance, most young adult books fall between 60,000 words and 90,000 words. I've kind of pushed that, and I've handed in books that are 100,000 words, and fantasy can sometimes get away with even more. But when you're eventually sending your book to agents, you don't want to have anything that would make them potentially turn you down. So I definitely recommend trying to keep your book within general word counts. And even if you draft a book over word count, you can always slim it down during edits. Step 2 to getting traditionally published: edit the dang book. A lot. I think a lot of people think, okay, I finished this draft, time to just send it to agents and like see how it does. But honestly, agents get so many queries that you don't want to send it to them and give them a reason to just brush you aside. So my best recommendation is to edit the book as much as you can by yourself. Now, some people hire editors, and that's totally up to you. I personally didn't, but again, some people do it. That's totally valid. Some people work with critique partners or beta readers. That's also a great way to get other eyes on your manuscript. I usually suggest trying that path first, just because one of the things I love most about publishing is that usually you shouldn't have to put money toward it up front, aside from your time, of course, and like overhead costs for programs, but you really shouldn't be paying anybody until you get paid. Again, if you hire a freelance editor, that's different and that's your choice, but you can theoretically do it yourself. Now, not only should you just edit your first draft once, but I suggest doing a couple rounds of edits. I would start with big picture edits or developmental edits that are things that like have a really big impact on the story. Then you can move on to line edits, which is more like grammar and phrasing. And then I would say doing copy edits, which is kind of like a last sweep for any common mistakes or continuity issues. I also suggest doing that because those are the types of edits you'll have to do once you work with a publisher. So I just think it's kind of cool to get yourself in practice for it ahead of time. During this step, I think it's also a great opportunity to find people in your community who are in kind of a similar boat as you and get a group together. And it's definitely easier said than done, so don't panic if you feel isolated at first. But so many of my friends I made when I was just starting to query or just got my agent, and they didn't have book deals either, and then we've grown together, and that's just really nice to like be 5 years down the line now and have kind of like, oh, we started from the bottom. Step 3, which you can do while editing your book, create a list of literary agents you would like to work with. I recommend doing this in a spreadsheet, but everybody's different, so put them wherever you want, but I think it's good to organize agents based on dream agents, agents who are known to respond really quickly, agents that have a good record but maybe aren't top of your list, things like that. The thing about literary agents is I know it can be tempting to just keep querying agents if you start getting a lot of rejections, but I can't emphasize enough how important it is to find a good partner. And this was the hardest part for me when I queried my first book and it didn't make it. I wanted to keep querying agents that I knew wouldn't be a good fit, and I even sent the book to a couple of them, and honestly it did not make me feel good because I knew at the end of the day I didn't want to work with them. So save them time, save you time, and only send your book to people you actually want to work with. If you're not sure which agents to query or where to even find them, there's certain websites like manuscriptwishlist.com and Query Tracker. I'll put them in the description. And they basically have like a database of agents and what the agent represents, and then you can look into the agent, look into their agency, and I suggest doing a lot of research just to see if they're a new agent. That's not a red flag, but they should then have an agency behind them that isn't new. So just kind of be mindful and think, is this someone who would be a good business partner? You're not looking for a friend, you're looking for a business partner. And if they become both, great, but business partner first. Not only that, but if you're looking at agents, don't just look at what they currently represent and what you're currently writing, but think about what you want to write in the future and do they represent that as well. This isn't a must, but I knew I wanted to write adult someday, so when I was querying agents, I only queried agents that represented YA and adult books. Something to know about agents is you should never have to pay them upfront. They get paid based off of a commission, which is usually 15%, and that's it. So if an agent is like, oh, if you sign with me or we agree to work together, here's my monthly fee, run. They're what we call a schmagent, which just means they're not good. So each agent will have like slightly different querying methods, so be sure to tailor each thing specifically to what they want, because again, that's just an easy way for them to disregard your query. And also, if you don't know what queries are, that is just you pitching your book to the agent. Usually the pitch is like a 1-page, like few paragraph summary of the book with a short bio about yourself, and then you usually include a set of sample chapters. Now, I know it can be like, okay, if I'm only sending sample chapters, why do I need the whole book? That's because the goal is for the agent to request the whole book so they can read it. But if they do that and you don't have the book like totally finished and edited, it's kind of throwing your chance away. Once you have your list of agents, then you should write your query letter. You can also do this beforehand, but I kind of like knowing who I'm gonna send it to first. Again, you'll want to follow agent guidelines as everybody's a little bit different and you don't wanna accidentally do something wrong and then have them disregard your query. When you start sending queries, I also really suggest creating a separate email for it, and that way you are not like clogging up your personal email, and then you can kind of check it at will, because querying is kind of soul crushing and there is a lot of silence to it. So anything you can do to protect your mental health is a plus. Other reason I suggested making a spreadsheet is because once you start querying, it's a lot easier to keep track of who you sent it to, when you sent it, how long it's been, things like that, because it's really easy to lose track when months and months go by and you don't hear anything. This is the worst part, but if you exhaust your list of agents that you'd like to work with, it might be time to shelve the book. And this does not need to be forever. I know so many people who they shelved a book, got an agent with their next book, and then their agent still wanted to represent the previous book they shelved. It happens a lot. No book is ever totally dead. So don't feel too crushed, but that said, I know it's crushing, so just try to rally. And that's why when you're querying, people say you should try and work on the next thing. I'm a huge proponent of that, but it is easier said than done. So once you do get an agent, in the best case scenario, some agents are editorial agents, which means they'll want to do rounds of edits as well. Some aren't. Again, that's just something to consider when you're querying agents, what type of agent you want to work with. I personally have an editorial agent, so after we partnered, her and I edited the book together before we sent it out to editors on what's called submission. Now, editors work at publishing houses, so you really need a literary agent to send to editors because most major publishing houses won't take unagented submissions. I don't know why that is. That's just kind of how the world of traditional publishing works. It's how it's always worked. However, having an agent is so important because, again, they're your business partner and they're there to protect and guide you. So you really do want an agent because they're going to help make sure that your contract is good, that there's no like sticky clauses, and ideally they're also going to kind of mentor and guide your career. I like to think of them as a manager, even though you're kind of equals. And if an agent wants to work with you, they'll offer to have a call, and this is a great opportunity to ask any questions that you have of them, any questions they have of you, and just to determine if the vibe is right and if you guys would be good partners. And if you are, then they'll usually ask to represent you. After you finish editing your book with your agent, if your agent is editorial, they'll then usually send you a sub list, which is the list of editors they plan to send the book to. Agents have different sub methods, and as far as I know, there aren't really right or wrong ones, but I really like that mine had like different rounds of sub. But in the first round, she included a lot of the main publishers I wanted to work with. During the sub process, you should also chat with your agent about your communication preferences because some people want to hear every single update. Some people only want to hear good news. Whatever works for you works for you. There's no right or wrong way. I personally like hearing every update, even the rejections, but again, everyone's different. Most importantly, while your book is on sub, try and work on the next thing. This is so important, and this is something I'm really grateful that I did because when my book died on submission, which just meant it didn't sell, I was already working on my next book. And even though it was heartbreaking, I honestly had moved on a little bit from it, and I would have totally jumped back into it had we gotten an offer, but it felt a lot less dire knowing I was already working on the next thing and knowing that my agent was also excited about the next thing because it made me feel like, okay, even though this thing didn't work out, she's not just gonna like give me the boot. Like, we're gonna keep working together. And you definitely want that in an agent as well. You don't want someone who's only partnering with you for one book. You want someone invested in your whole career. And no matter who you are, you're gonna have rejections in your career. Step 7, if an editor wants to buy your book, you'll probably have a call with them. I actually didn't for my first book. I just had a series of emails, but however it works. And then again, your agent is so important here because they will negotiate what you get for that book and what the terms are, and then eventually what the contract looks like. Some books only get one offer and they still do great. Some get multiple offers. Some go to auction. Some sell in preempts where they get an offer that takes every other publisher off the table. You just don't know. It's super varied, and even though like certain scenarios can seem like success indicators, it is truly a mixed bag. At the end of the day, if you get a book deal, that's amazing and that's something to celebrate. Step 8, accept the offer. Obviously under your agent's guidance, but if it's something that you guys agree is a good thing to pursue, accept the offer and congratulations, you have a book deal. You usually can't just go say that you got a book deal. You have to wait until it's announced on Publishers Marketplace, which is where pretty much every book deal gets announced. But once it's up in there, then you can usually talk about it. And during that time, you'll also usually sign a contract and hopefully get paid with your advance, whatever that may be, if you get an advance. So that's kind of the crash course in getting traditionally published. I know that's a lot and that makes it sound easy and dumbed down. It is not an easy process whatsoever, and for most people it takes literal years. I know it did for me, but I promise that if you stick with it, if you keep trying, hopefully you'll get a breakthrough eventually. And I know it can be difficult and I know it can be hard to keep heart, but honestly, there are always going to be people who want your book no matter what somebody says. So believe in yourself, believe in your stories, and I'm rooting for you. And if you have any other questions on the publishing process or what happens after you accept your book deal and the lead up to your book actually coming out, let me know if you want, and I'll make a part 2. Oh, and also don't forget to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And you can add my upcoming books, I Hope This Email Finds You in Hell and Worse Than the Others, on Goodreads, and be sure to follow me because I'm going to be revealing the cover for I Hope This Email Finds You in Hell hopefully soon. Okay, love you, bye!